Hello. Welcome to the third video in this series. So today we're looking at the Nemushe, or like the peoples in the Western Desert area, or not quite only in the Western Desert area, but more like in desert areas overall. So we have like Aram Damascus, which is, if you look at the map behind these guys, like in this area. So, and then we have the Libu, which are like in that Western Desert area. So basically, like, think desert peoples, or that's the idea, or arid areas, or what have you. So the first faction here is Hesioneser, which is actually a made up name of a ruler, but it's also like on play on an actual much later uh, ruler called Hesion. I just used Canaanite naming rules to create the name. So this grouping will actually be in some ways the most ignored, but also intentional most ignored factions in the game, and you'll notice later on why I say that. So here you have most of these units are like Canaanite or Habiru units from like previous places and factions, but they do have some pretty interesting units if you ask me. And one is a camel chariot, and one is, I think, a cow chariot. So like they're maybe not the most practical, if I'm being honest, as chariots, but they're pretty fun to run around run around with. And if you really like zooming into battles and looking at all the carnage close up and stuff like that, I that's like what I like about this faction the most, if I'm being honest. um and they have a tier 5 pretty decent infantry as well, pretty decent archers, but not really stellar or great anything. Like this, with this you'll probably get mid tier, like good enough decent armies. um yeah, like club units aren't the best, to be honest. In this time period, clubs, especially in Egypt, were being phased out in favor of other weapons. While they were more common earlier, it's also a cheap weapon. So you can see it does only 42 damage versus like this tier 4 Habiru unit that does 55. So, yeah, so no, not really the greatest. But then we have like a monument to Haddad, which is a god, and legitimacy growth, decent. No, nothing spectacular, decent, I would say. This is, I would say, hands down, like everyone except Teknachte has a building like this, and it's intentional. Like, it gives you a bunch of, it's like a trade building. It gives you a bunch of income of everything, but you can see that administrative burden +5. you know Maybe other factions are a little bit jealous, so -5 on diplomacy, etc. But you get pretty sweet resource incomes. And then we have on military building that gives attack and defense values plus some recruitment rank. It's not the strongest of this kind, but it's still decent. So this is a faction that I would say best word to describe it is decent. It's not really good at anything, but it's like overall decent. Then we have Setnachte here. He's an Egyptian warlord. Historically, he was, I think, located somewhere around this area, but CA decided for some reason to put him up here. I don't know why. But yeah, basically, he's, I would say, military faction. So you can see here justification for rulership. It's taken like, I think, I don't remember anymore, but I think from some building text or something. I'm not quite sure. I would need to check, but you can see there's a long explanation, and you get recruitment slots, upkeep, reduction, and I think he gets a lot of upkeep reduction. So you, with him, you can essentially build a bunch of upkeep reductions in your cities, and you can also get a lot of recruitment stuff. And then you can see his third building too, upkeep reduction. So plus, I think with temples and stuff you get -10 upkeep reduction, plus there may be some other buildings that give it to you, plus tech and other stuff. You can actually get almost free, if not free. I don't want to say completely free, but very, 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 very cheap armies with this guy, as long as you stay put. But that's actually a good thing in the sense that it will allow you to like build stockpiles of resources. Stay put, build stockpiles, and then when you're ready, you have enough stockpiles to go into the red. You just roll out with your armies and, you know, take over the place and do your stuff. While his faction roster, or sorry, unit roster is, I would say, balanced. It's not either really super good at anything, although I would have to say his infantry is among the best in Egypt. Like, he has the marine unit here that does a lot of damage. He has strong spear units and stuff like this, and many of these units are actually also from unreleased Seknakte assets in the database that I think was meant for a DLC, which would have brought him in. So like the assets in the database were just like helmets and armor and stuff like this were lying around. The units themselves weren't there, but I then, you know, took those assets and made them into units that I think might have emulated what CA might have wanted to give him. So he has a few of those, like the marine units have assets from those, I think, and then these two has. And I would say he makes a pretty good tier 4 force. He has like tier 4 chariots, tier 4 archers, tier 4 infantry. Like, that's his jam, I think. But he also has that, as you know, noticed, tier 5 infantry 4. Like, if you really want to go that high end, but no like archers or what have you in that sense. While Merier and Gemefshutkapu, if I can pronounce it myself, they actually have the same roster basically, or actually they do, but in the roster here they're just in some different order, but same units. So I'll actually, and the same things apply to both of them. So I'll just go through one of them, but then or you can actually translate that then to the other faction too. So they have a bunch of local Libu units from the local pool, but then they have their own chariot unit with a pretty decent firing range, but if memory serves, it's also pretty squishy. So you might want to charge with it pretty sparingly. It has one heavy unit. All the other units are, or no, almost heavy, but all the other units are pretty low on the armor front, which is as intended. Then there's essentially the same unit when it comes to like armor and stuff like this, but you can see their bows are different, and in the looks on the battlefield, their bows, if you zoom in, you'll notice the bows are also different, but everything else is the same armor and everything. But then, so at a glance they may actually look the same, but you can see one has the same bow as the Yam unit from Apadema Kashta down in Napata. So it's a long range firing and does a lot of damage, while the tier 4 counterpart is sort of like a cheaper variant. And if you're another faction, you can only get the tier 4 variant, but if you're one of these guys, you can get the tier 5 variant. And this tier 5 variant is, in my opinion, among the strongest units in the Libu roster. Like, you can try more to say sit back and just hammer your enemies with arrows, and yeah, well, they only get one building, and this is by intent. So for example, they also only get one title per character. So like any character that you may have, they can only have that one title equipped, while other factions may have like 2, 3 or 4 titles. These guys get only one. They get only one building, although this building is pretty strong, a lot of food produced, but still it's meant to be a little bit of a different faction. They're supposed to feel a little bit less civilized from the fringes and stuff, but still, powerful enough that you can actually cause some real harm with them, like with these bow units. So that's essentially both of them, the two Libu factions. This has slight variations in the resources produced, but it's virtually the same building. Then we have the last guys in this category, which are the old Sutu, but now Almutu. So Almutu was a known tribe in the area, and as you can see, they do have the same principle, but as you also can see, with different resource production values, but still same principle, only one building. And if memory serves, these guys do get only one title, maybe two, but I think only one title. But here's the but: these guys are the only faction in the game that gets camel units, which are the vanilla camel units, but nobody else gets camelry, so to say. Aram Damascus here gets camel chariot, one camel chariot, but no actual camel riders. So you'll be having those. And then the infantry here is, well, it has one pretty like tanky units, heavy units, but overall they're like mid armored to like pretty low armored, and also pretty weak when it comes to range units, but they have camels. So you, like, I would say your playstyle with these guys would be to just hold and tie up any enemy with infantry, and then just roll around the flanks with your camels, cycle charge, and that way win battles. Or that would be my suggestion. But yeah, that has been the Nemushe. For our next video, we'll go to Mesopotamia or Birit Narim. But yeah, thanks for watching and see you later, alligators.